I'm Dane Rosen. In this exploration, we'll look at the pros and cons of free material or free, let's call it educational material, versus paid educational material. So one of the things that you'll hear Tony Robbins and many others in the business of selling educational material say is that it's good to charge a healthy amount for educational material, because if you don't, people who come across that material will assume that it has no value and will not learn. In other words, that you're doing someone a favor by charging a lot of money for educational material. So I thought we'd look at that, right? Because I heard that 30 years ago as a young person. And I didn't know at that point, right? Should I be buying more expensive things than I have to so that I'll get more benefit, right? There wasn't any survey that I could do at the time. So I worked with, Tony Robbins, Brian Tracy, and a whole, similar ilk of people to start my business at age 17, to grow that business, to provide better service. I've never been an employee in my entire life. From starting my business at age 17, to making millions of dollars with that business. That's pretty much been my experience. And I would say that Brian Tracy was adequate to that, meaning I learned, I think the product was called Advanced Selling Strategies by Brian Tracy. I learned from that one cassette enough to learn how to think about a business, to learn how to sell the business, to learn how to treat my customers, to learn how to increase my rates, etc. Right? That's incredible. And Brian Tracy has helped millions of people in that regard. The thing is, I never spent a penny. Why? Well, I went to the library. There wasn't YouTube at the time, right? Now it's better than ever. I went to the library. I asked them to buy Brian Tracy's material, and then I checked it out, and I listened to it on what was a cassette at the time, a Walkman. It would be these 6-packs, and then Nightingale Conant would sell them for $60. But I didn't buy them. I listened 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day on my Sony Walkman while I was working and putting them into practice. So I got paid to learn, and the educational materials, to me, were free. Now, why did I put them into practice? It's not because I paid a lot of money. It's because I wanted to be independent, which meant that I needed to succeed in starting my own business. I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to have money as a 17-year-old. That's why I learned the material. So I would submit that throughout history, there have been mentor relationships. There have been books. We have learned from one another, in many cases without paying a dime, and done very well. So if you are the type of person who will not take something seriously, will not grow and will not learn unless you spend a lot of money on it, then go ahead and spend a lot of money on it. If you are the type of person who isn't willing to learn and grow, right? You just want to sit there on the couch and listen to that. That's a good idea that I'm never going to get around to, right? Then I don't think it matters whether you get it for free or whether you pay a lot of money for it, other than whether you want to be in debt, right? Because if you're not working very hard, you don't have a lot of money for the most part, right? Right? I left home with $50, right? So if I had spent a lot of money, where would it have come from? Debt. So, if you're not going to put the things into practice, then please don't spend a lot of money on them. If you are going to put them into practice, only on condition that you spent a lot of money. I've heard stories about that. People like, damn it, I spent $1,000 on this. I'm not going to let it go to waste. Then great, right? And there is a little bit of that lost aversion mindset that could be useful. But I don't think that's, for most people, I don't think that's necessarily the driving factor, right? Because if you take that $1,000, when you're just starting out and put it into things that you need, like in my landscape construction and design business, I needed shovels, I needed a wheelbarrow, I needed pruners, I needed gloves, I needed rain jackets. If I put $1,000 into that and got my educational material for free, that's going to be way better than having a lot of expensive educational material and not having the tools I need to do my job and maybe having $1,000 of credit card debt that I can't pay off. So I would point that out. I think there's a good percentage of people who will spend a lot of money if encouraged or suggested that they do so, who do not have the initiative to actually do the work to make it pay off. And those people are done a disservice by suggesting that spending a lot of money is in their interest. I think there's also a lot of people that are willing to succeed with the resources available to them for free. I've never appreciated something less because I saw it on the side of the street, or got it at a garage sale. It's like I thought, well, great, I've got a good deal. And I think, okay, if I can keep being intelligent like this, then I'm going to be able to succeed, right? Because if you look out from the perspective of someone who doesn't have any money and say, I'm going to have to spend $1,000 on my education, and then I'm going to have to spend, buy brand new everything, and I'm going to have to get a $50,000 truck, and I'm going to have to do this, and I'm going to have to do that. Can you realistically believe that that's all going to work? Where's that money going to come from? How, if you've got $3,000 in debt payments every month before you have any customers, do you believe you're going to get those customers by the end of the month? And will those customers be responsive if you're in the attitude of, hey, I need money to pay off my debts, right? So I personally think you're better off managing and being careful. Like, I never spent a dime. And here's what I mean. I babysat, which had zero overhead, until I had $50, right? Then I took the $50 and I wrote out a flyer of what I could and couldn't do and, said, here's what I'd like to do for $14 an hour. So my babysitting money becomes my advertising budget, $50, and those are just photocopies, right? I typed it out, went to the photocopier, and then I went to, my neighborhood. I learned how to go door to door with Brian Tracy's advanced selling strategies. I knocked on the door. I said, may I please give you a copy of my landscape flyer? I'm one of your neighbors. I tucked it into the door. If nobody answered, if they did, I gave it to them and walked away. Sometimes I'd get a job on the spot. They'd say, oh, before you go, can you clean my gutters, do this and that and the other? I said, sure, I'll come back tomorrow and do that. And I just did that until I had no more time in my schedule, right? So within less than 2 weeks with $50, I had more work than I could keep up with. So I never had to do that again. So then that $50 becomes hundreds, becomes thousands of dollars. And how did I get to work? I went on my bicycle. What did I use? My clients' tools. Everyone had a pair of gloves, of this, that, the other. And I did that for a while until I could save up enough money to buy a used Toyota for $750, right? But I didn't need to go into debt. And I never paid full price or a lot of money until those techniques made my time far more valuable than money, right? When I was making $400 an hour, then getting something at half price by driving around to the garage sales is no longer intelligent. That's when I start buying educational materials as well. Why? Because I don't want to take the time to go to the library and check it out. Not because I wouldn't do the work if I got it for free, but because at $400 an hour, if I go to the library and stand in line and look for the book and, oh, it's checked out, and learn the library system and then rush back and return the item within 30 days, whether I've listened to it or not, that's $400. And I can just click buy with one click and it arrives at my door and saves me $400, and I spend $10 on an Audible book. So that brings me to the next point, which is, should you go to a $20,000 VIP experience with Tony Robbins, or or a $5,000 or a $10,000 or a $1,000 or a $350? Like, should I go to a day-long workshop of live speaking, or should I buy the $10 book on Audible? Or I think it's now $13.99 if you buy a lot of Audibles, I'd say buy the Audible. Why? Well, there's a couple of things. Number one, you can listen to Audible while driving, while cooking, while walking. You can't go to an all-day event. Number two, the finished hour of an audiobook, someone has put probably 10 hours into that finished hour. Right? There is impeccable quality control in writing a book and putting it into an Audible format. There is not as much quality control that goes into a live event in many cases. Right? Meaning, in many cases, you'll go to a live event, and first of all, it's only 5 hours instead of 30 hours or 10 hours or 15 hours, whatever. Or maybe it's a 1 hour talk and it costs $50 to get into the 1 hour talk, and they spend 5 minutes. And it's not very new material, right? You can't skip through the chapters, etc., to the area that's relevant to you. So in-person interactions always cost more than a book or an Audible book. Number one. Number two, they're often shorter. Number three, they're often lower quality. Right? They pick a really nice audio narrator in the Audible book that's a pleasure to listen to. Maybe your speaker has a sore throat that week. And also, you could say, well, I want to meet them in person. Well, why would you meet them in person at the very moment when 100 other people or 1,000 other people want to meet them in person? Because nobody wants to meet, just for sheer pleasure, 100 or 1,000 people in one day. I don't want to. You don't want to. Meanwhile, a month after the live presentation or a week after the live presentation, they may be sitting out in their deck chair, recuperating from the talk, and there isn't a single person in their life, right? So you want to, and then you could have an email or a Zoom or an exchange like that when you'd be the one person that reached out to them that day, rather than the 100 because maybe not, right? Maybe they've got, 10 emails a day. But there's never more competition for someone's time than right after a major presentation. So again, you're not going to stand out or have, a half-hour moment with the person because you went to the event. You're going to have that afterwards or before, or going on a Greyhound bus ride or wherever it is, or meeting them on the plane, whatever. That's the point where you're going to have a more meaningful interaction. Just the logistics of time. So again, you're better off with the cheaper material. Now, the other thing is, I would think this is a good ground rule. There is enough stuff for free on YouTube that you can assess how much impact, basically how much you're going to do something about what you've learned. Now, if you haven't done anything, if you watched 3 hours of Eckhart Tolle and you've never done a meditation, the idea, and so there's no real benefit. You just think, oh, that's the kind of thing I'd like to do that will have benefit when I do it. But if you're not going to do that, then you might do it as a group in your time with Eckhart at, $1,000 a pop or whatever it is for a weekend or a week sit-in or something. However, the one-time experience is not going to have a big impact. It's going to be this habitual thing. So if you're not then willing to follow up and do it at home later, it's, in a year you'll have forgotten it, right? So I would set a this is my barrier or my kind of threshold. If I'm going to learn something, I'll start with a book, I'll start with a video that's easy for me. If I see anything that is actionable, I will generally take 1 to 2 actions as a result of that presentation. I'll say, okay, I'm going to do that right now and see how that works. Maybe a 5-minute experiment, maybe an hour experiment. I'll do something. If it's good enough, it'll get a place in my routine and I'll repeat it. Now, if it's good, it will bear benefit, right? If it's a financial type course, then, it'll bring me money. For example, I've spent $7,000 on Audible, and the things that I've done as a result of listening to 300 of those books, it's really only 100 of them, the things that I've done in response to 100 of the 700 books have made me, it's probably 600,000 and counting. So 7,000, 600,000 and counting. So we got about, 100 to 1. That's good impact, right? So I'm very into, anytime I see an Audible book that has some promise, I buy it on the spot. Do it, right? Because I know that, 1 out of every one of those 7 is going to end up having a meaningful impact, number 1. Number 2, I know that, I could spend another $5,000-10,000 on Audible easily and have wonderful listening for the rest of my life, and also know that somewhere tucked in there's going to be some things that end up making more money than the entire cost of all of those programs. So it's basically free upgrades, free education, again, right? So that's my, that's my take, and I think that it's also worth looking at two things. Number one is there is a noticeable group of people who spend lots of money trying to get rich. And there's a problem with that, in the sense that, I meet people in their 50s and 60s and 70s who wish they could get all of that back and had put that money into the stock market and done nothing, right? Rather than, if you can put money into a Vanguard index fund or, a growth ETF, et cetera, or a diversified portfolio or Berkshire Hathaway, right? If you can put something that has had a, good track record, like the S&P has had a good track record for the last 100 years, Warren Buffett's had a good track record the last 50 years, right? Diversified portfolio, a house, right? Those have had good track records for the last 100 years. Almost any new speaker doesn't have a 50-year track record. Like Brian Tracy now has a 50-year track record, and Tony Robbins has a 50-year track record, right? But there is a noticeable demographic of people who have spent more money on Tony Robbins or any of them than they've netted. Where their big event is, let's go see Tony Robbins and save up for that or put that on a credit card and enjoy the idea that one day we'll be like one of these people that take a lot of initiative, but that they've spent $10, $20, $30, $50, $100,000. Now, the same is true with therapy and with channeling, etc. You can put $250,000 into therapies and channels and crystals and all of that to manifest abundance. Or you can put $250,000 into an index fund. And again, there's a noticeable group of people that would be more financially abundant if they invested that money in the stock market and invested their time learning free material from the library, from YouTube, etc., right? I have a YouTube premium program, so, for $100 a year, I don't see any ads. And, that's wonderful, right? I listen to probably 300 hours of useful educational material on YouTube for $100, including, great Tony Robbins presentations, et cetera, et cetera. So that demographic that doesn't take initiative or that takes bold action, I'm going to believe in myself and, buy a Corvette and do this, and then I'm going to be successful and pay off all that debt. There's a very noticeable, statistic of people that are harmed that are not being tracked, right? Because it's not in the interest of someone selling programs to track the people who are worse off because they put that money into that rather than to paying off debt or buying a house, right? It's not in their interest to track them, but they're there. Is it 20% of people that are worse off because they took a series of expensive courses, whatever they were? Now, we know that that's true with college education, right? As college education has gone up in price and its return on investment has gone down simultaneously, meaning you can no longer predict getting a particular job with a college degree the way you could in 1950. But what is certain is that you're going to pay 5, 10, 20 times more than you would have in 1950. And in many cases, you got it for free on the GI Bill, et cetera, et cetera. So the same is true there, right? Free is not bad. It's not bad for the environment, right? Because there's all these people with entire house libraries of tapes and books and stuff they never look at again, but they paid all this money for it, so they keep moving it from house to house, but they're not going back and integrating and reviewing that. That means a lot of trees, a lot of plastic sitting on shelves. If you get something from the library, it's reused. Or if you use it and you're not, give it away to someone that might use it. So borrowing, learning in study groups, getting an iPod, or a phone to listen to audiobooks together and have discussion groups. Mr. Beast, for example, found 4 buddies, and they would talk, 10, 20 hours a day, every day for years about how to crack the YouTube algorithm, how to be successful on YouTube. They didn't hire people to show them how to make money quick on YouTube, right? Because I would say that the majority of here's how to make a lot of money courses cost the majority of people more than they make. I certainly know I spent about a year of my life and probably $1,000 in buying different programs just on Audible, and doing all these things, and I'm going to do this so that I can do that, so that I can do this, so that one day I'll make a lot of money. I never made a single dollar, let alone making back the money that I on all those courses. But who was making money were the people producing the courses. Right? Every single time I bought a course on how to make money online, they were making money online, selling the idea that I could easily make money online. Right? But I never made money online, and I certainly didn't make it easier. I came to the conclusion that I was a fool to try to make easy money online because I made so much more easy money in my landscape business. And I was working really, really hard to make no money when I could make $400 an hour managing a landscape crew of 5. Something that was very, very easy to do after 20, 30 years of experience. So that's, that's my sense. And there's one other little piece in this area that I think is worth noticing. One of the easiest things to sell is get rich quick and easy programs. Why? Well, we are a financially illiterate culture. You can go from cradle to grave in our culture and go through all the institutions. Go to kindergarten, middle school, high school, and college without learning one fucking useful thing about money, about running a good business, for example. In fact, if you look at your role models, teachers making very little money trying to teach people how to succeed in life, a little bit crazy, isn't it? You're going to help prepare me for life when you're one of the least paid people in life? Right? Something a little odd with that, right? The inefficiencies of school bureaucracy. You don't want to run your business like that. So you've got nothing but terrible role models, right? And you can talk to your friends. They don't know anything. How to run a successful business, they don't know anything. So in a financially illiterate culture, where the cult, the norm, we do this because we do this, and that's all we do because that's what we did, and that's why we do it, right? That's a self-referential cult. Everyone does it, and it doesn't make any sense. So in a financially illiterate culture, nobody knows anything useful. Now, if nobody knows anything useful, if you're ignorant, and one person says, you're going to have to work hard, you're going to have to work smart, you're going to have to beat the statistical odds, like 70% of all businesses fail, for example, 70% of all restaurants fail, there's all these statistics, and they're not necessarily on your side. So one person says you're going to have to work hard and do this and make investments, and you've still got to beat the vast majority odds that are stacked against you. and you're going to have to work better than this, and you have to think independently, and you're going to have to be creative, which you haven't learned how to do. That's your path there, right? And they'll give you that for free. But someone else is going to charge you $1,000 to tell you the secret. It's always a secret, right? The secret, a secret, my secret. Once you know this secret, you're going to be able to be richer than everyone else. It'll happen in less than 30 days, less than a year, less than 6 months. Guaranteed. This one, you still have to beat the odds. This one's guaranteed. Guaranteed to work. I've never seen any of my students not make $1 million within 30 days, double their income within 30 days, Right? So guaranteed. It's easy. Anyone can do it. Right? You may be a quadriplegic, right? Can't speak English. Anyone can do it. It's possible, right? Gee, all I have to do is spend $1,000 and I'll learn, guaranteed, how to succeed and make a lot of money. Let's see. On this one, there's no guarantee. On this one, there's a guarantee. On this one, I might make some money after a lot of hard work. On this one, I'll definitely make a lot of money very easily. Well, an intelligent, a psychologically, a financially literate person understands some things, right? Nothing is free. Everything comes from something else. Right? So in this case, the income for the speaker, for the teacher, is coming from you. Your 1,000 is going over to them. Now they have your 1,000. Now, it's not generally a great proposition to say, I'm going to spend the money I have so that I can have more money. I mean, there is a lot to that, but it's also a bit shaky, isn't it? Right? I want more money, so I'm going to give you the money that I have. Right? If you know what you're doing, right? Investors make the most money. As a general rule, people who invest in themselves and in creating value in the world and do so competently, and you invest in that, yes. But if you don't know what you're doing, it's a little bit dubious, right? Because statistically, that doesn't work very well. If you don't know what you're doing, the odds are stacked against you, right? Because 90% of the time, when you give someone else money that you actually have so that you can get more money, that may or may not happen. 90% of the time, if you just look at the just sheer number of people, say, give me a loan, I'll give you it back with interest, and this is a sure thing. 90% of the time, you're going to lose money, right? It's a guaranteed 100% that if you have that money, you will have that money, right? So you want to invest in things that work, like getting a house at a bargain price and fixing it up to be worth even more. That works 85, 90% of the time. Giving a relative a loan works 5% of the time. Going to Vegas works 1% of the time. Right? So you want to bet in the things that are in your favor. But the other thing that I think is worth noting is that nothing sells easier than saying you can have everything that you want. I mean, forget about money, abundance, an abundance of everything with very little effort and no intelligence. If you buy my course, show up at my events, whatever. Nothing is easier to sell. As a result, the people selling them have a lot of money. Emotionally illiterate culture, financially illiterate culture, plus someone offering an incredible proposition of pleasure without pain, right, for a high price equals a rich person. Now, here's the little filter to look at that, right? Because if people don't know what they're doing, they're going to believe something that doesn't make any sense. Like if you told an average person in the city, all you have to do to make $1 million is plant these soybeans, and then they'll just grow on their own, right? You don't have to do anything, and then you just sell the soybeans at the end of the year and you'll make $1 million. Oh, they say, oh, this is great. Here, give me the $1 million. We'll sell you some soybeans. You've got it made, right? Then you won't have to ever pay me again. You'll just reseed the soybeans, and farmland is cheap. Here. It's incredible, incredible. Someone else says, if you buy my farm, you're going to work hard, you may go bankrupt, right? Right. So you go out and you plant soybeans, etc. But no farmer is going to take that seriously. Farmer's going to say, do these soybeans have parasites? Have they been acclimated for my region of farming? What's the price of soybeans? How many soybean farmers go broke? How many soybean farmers are deeper and deeper in debt? What's the statistics? How many hours does it take of my time to run a 4,000-acre farm that's supposedly going to make all this money? And they're going to ask a really important question. Could you show me your farm? Could you show me how you're doing this? And, then you'll be able to go to their farm and you say, well, you mean you have 30 years of welding experience, so you don't have to hire a welder for $300 an hour. You just get out and do it yourself. Oh, I see. So you're working 18-hour days, you're repairing your own equipment and, working 18-hour days and managing, 3,000 acres. You do indeed make $1 million on $300 million of invested capital, or on, 5 million invested, but I don't have 5 million. Invested, and I don't have all this experience, right? So you want to see the system, right? That works. So the mistake is that since that's a very, very easy thing to sell, the person selling it, if they've got any competence, is going to be rich selling it. Right? They're going to learn all the various tricks and all the social media hacks and all that and whatever. And they're going to make a lot of money selling the idea of an easy life on the condition that you pay them money. And the easiest thing is just let it happen, right? If it's meant to be, it'll meant to be. The universe will take care of you, blah, 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 right? That's wonderful. I have to take care of myself. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have a very good track record. I'm not interested in hearing that. The universe will take care of me if I surrender. Well, I haven't tried that yet. Let's give that a try, right? But if you look carefully at these people, they're very hardworking. They've been very hardworking their whole life. The universe isn't just taking care of them. They're selling night and day. They're buying ads. Often hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of ads to find people like you that will pay $1,000 to give them the $1 million. Right? And my point is, don't do what people say to do in their courses. Look at what they're actually doing. Like if you find a great, successful, let's say a best-selling author on abundance and ease, how to live a life of ease and abundance. Well, take Tim Ferriss and the 4-Hour Workweek, a great book, by the way. He's working constantly, 60 hours a week, right? 60 hours a week to make the 4-Hour Workweek a bestseller, right? So what works, the 4 hours a week or the 60, right? Now, and there's a place for both, but my point is, if you see a discrepancy between the message in somebody's course and what they're doing, like you'll go to a lot of these get-rich-quick type things, and they'll say, wouldn't you like to get up at 10 a.m. and just say, I think I'll sleep for another hour. And hang out in your pajamas all day. And just go online and see all the money you're making. Sounds interesting, right? But you look at them personally. They're not in their pajamas. They're in a suit and tie, right? You can be in your pajamas if you buy my course, but I'm still stuck in a suit and tie. You can lay in bed all day, but I'm pumping out. I'm on the road. I'm not visiting my family. I'm telling you how you can live your life. Right? You see the problem. If they could get up and just have you give them thousands of dollars without getting into a tie and suit, without telling you the story, without having a good microphone, without getting out of bed, right, in pajamas, and stay home with their family, you don't think they'd be doing it? Instead, they're out city to city in crappy hotels telling you that you can do what they can't do. They're not in their pajamas. They're not laying in bed till noon. If they are, they're not enjoying it. You learn that, by the way. Right? If you take a 3-month vacation or more, you'll find you get a little bored, a little dreary. It's no fun. Doing something meaningful and important, that's fun. Spending time every day doing things that you want to do and working hard at them, that's fun. Waking up and getting droopy, right? Because you slept 10 hours when you only needed 8. Now you're a bit drowsy and you're not awake. It's not the promise they're living. It's also not the promise you would want to live. It's the promise you've been brainwashed into thinking. Wouldn't it be nice, says the adolescent, to not have to go to school today? If you actually try it, right, drop out of school, I did, just lay around in bed all day, it gets boring, right? We're not designed to lay around in bed all day. We're designed to create, to explore, to think, to feel, to live interesting lives. So finding a job that you care about and getting really good at it, working hard at it for 10 years, is much more interesting than laying around in bed with your, watching money pile up that, what are you going to do? Just keep buying houses that you can only be in one at a time? I mean, it's boring. Right, so that's a final filter. You'll often find that the people selling the easy life the most successfully are the most disciplined, hardworking, conservative, wear a tie and suit type of people that you can imagine. And they've been working their ass off to polish their pitch to pretend to be having the easy life that you want because you're not smart enough to understand that you don't want it, number one. And number two, right, nothing's free. Right? It all comes from something. So even if you could theoretically be a small minority of people that sits around and watches money accumulate and don't have to grow and don't have, that's the thing, don't have to grow. The most important fulfilling experience in life is to become better at being the person you want to be. There's nothing more fulfilling that. You don't have to grow. Right? You don't have to stay in a mediocre cocoon of other people's expectations. You can become more of who you want to be. Now that's an opportunity to work your ass off and feel, the accomplishment of that. So my thoughts on take the free one, spend a lot of money on making money.